Welcome back to a main event, part of the Friday Payroll Club. We've got a special guest in the studio today, fourth studio episode. We are once again in one of our favourite locations. How are you doing today, Az?
Oh, living the dream, James.
Living the
I'm
dream?
glad it's Friday, mate.
As always, the last Friday of the month.
God, yeah, cheers.
Indeed, it is the last Friday of the month, and we're up to the main event of today's episode. I think we're looking at November, so Christmas is obviously just around the corner. But today, as mentioned, we've got a special guest in the studio with us, and we have got arguably one of the biggest cabling companies in the Southwest. Right thing to say, Mr. John Hurley?
That is true, apparently so. That's what we've been told, so yeah.
Welcome to the Friday Payroll Club. It's good to have you here. How's your journey in?
Yeah, not too bad. Train was pretty painless, so yeah.
Yeah, good. Well, appreciate you joining us. I know you've got a lot on your plate at the moment. We've been talking a lot, and I think the construction industry as a whole is facing some pretty big challenges. I think outside of just the industry itself, there's a lot of political, dare I say it, and kind of global tensions that are arising, and construction's kind of feeling some of the pinch of that. And you've got quite a big background in that space. So as always, it would be great just to get a bit of a snapshot into you and who you are and who Flownet Solutions are, and yeah, just
Origin
a little
story.
origin story. Here we go.
Yeah, so basically we've Flownet Solutions been going from 2016, so we're well established, I'd say, within the industry. Myself, I've been in construction for 29 years now, so feeling that age thing. And it's changed massively over the years. It's sort of from the safety aspect to the monetary value in projects. It's, big projects to small projects. It's quite scary how much it has changed in that period of time.
And so 2016, Flownet's been around since.
Yep.
What happened before 2016? Kind of, can you give us a snap?
So I used to work for a structural steel company in Portsmouth.
Oh yeah,
and we used to.
I know that place.
We used to work in and around London mainly. I was in London for about 14 years, travelling up and down. A3 was a well-known road.
Yeah.
Before
tunnel.
Worked on before tunnel. To be fair, yeah. Worked on some massive projects: Canary Wharf, Wembley, mainly sort of Mayfair areas, that sort of places. So yeah, really high established jobs. BBC worked for them. So yeah, crazy.
Few location and name drops in there.
Well, I have done a few. So
Are you one of the people in construction that drives past something and goes, "I built that"?
all the time? My wife gets absolutely fed up with it. We won't go to London for that reason.
Well, it's 29 years, so it's obviously long tenured in the industry. And did you kind of start out in cabling? Well, cabling and where?
No. So my original kind of background was structural steel and architectural,
Okay.
and obviously COVID come into place, which we all know about, and that's really when the cabling took off, which was, that's when we got into that. So I had to diverse for the time of we were in.
And that's, we talk about it a lot as it's a bit of a buzzword now. It's, the B's and the C's and the digital IDs. There we go. There's a bit of a rhyme there. And we try not to get too politically involved with it. But yeah, definitely had knock-on effects. Have you seen anything, you pivoted as a business, have you seen anything else that's kind of...
Yeah, I think that the time was difficult for a lot of companies, and I think some thrived, some didn't. Key worker status obviously gave us a big impact on that, which was good, and that's why we changed really, because construction fell down massively the night that Mr. Boris Johnson stood up and announced to the country that it's shut. So we literally jumped on the bandwagon and changed, and that's what we had to do. And I think
you didn't stop at all, really, right?
No, we had a week off.
Yeah,
that's it. And 1 week, and looked at everyone sat at home while we were building Wi-Fi for everyone to be able to work from home. So
and thank you very much for your effort.
No problem. Single-handedly built the whole company.
Yeah, for kind of the 2016, even that's 5 years is considered kind of long tenure, I guess. But obviously, from a business standpoint, still fairly in its infancy as such.
Yeah.
What have you seen in the last kind of fast forward from 2020 to the last 12 months? What do you think's the kind of evolution of the construction industry?
The level of academic skills you need now when you go out on site. Back in the olden days, and I think I'm old enough to say that now, is you went out on site, you did a job, you got paid, and that was it. Where now you've got apps, they want evidence, you know, the sort of data that you've got to put into jobs now is massive, you know, and I think it's quite difficult for the guys on the ground. I think they struggle with that because, you know, you're trying to do what we did in the past, but now you've got to evidence everything because ultimately QSs want evidence to be able to pay you for it. So, yeah.
So is it kind of more technology on the ground with the workers? You're seeing that there's more requirements for them to do bits before they can even start the gig, I guess.
Massively. Yeah. I mean, that's from tender process right through to completion progress. You know, you have to evidence every element of work. You know, when I was doing steel erecting, you built a building and you did all the bolts up and you left it. Now you've got to take pictures of connections and download that on the app that the principal contractor wants, and until that evidence is in, you're not getting paid. And that's quite difficult for owners of companies because cash flow, you know, you're obviously everyone wants to get paid monthly, weekly, whatever your terms are. And that gets hindered by evidence now, which was never a thing before.
And I think that tech on site before you can start the gig, we see similarities in that with our processes, with things like April 2026, more legislation coming down funnel, more
Safe
focus.
rec, live auditing, that sort of stuff.
Exactly, especially for like agencies, and I think even for end hirers, you know, everyone's joint and severally liable now. We've obviously had dedicated episodes about that topic. Not to get too tied down in the weeds, but what was wrong with the old way? Do you think it's for better or worse? Or do you think it's overkill? I mean, you've got a lot of experience kind of going, of all aspects, going on to job and doing the job all the way through to owning the job effectively.
Yeah. I mean, projects were cheaper and easier to run, that's for sure. The days of kicking a guy in a van and giving him a method statement and sending him out to work. But I get why people do it, because obviously these projects have warranties, and warranties need evidence to say that you've done it right in the first place. The guy on the ground, I think it's harder for him as a business owner of a warranty with a principal contractor. I think it's great because you can then go back to that client and say, well, we have done that work and we've done it correctly.
Creates order.
So, yeah.
And it sounds as though simplifying that process to access money, because ultimately that's what we're saying is like until these tick boxes have happened, the guy's not going to be getting across because he's not on site doing the job, which I guess is how a lot of your guys are obviously paid. And again, I think that translates quite nicely into some of the challenges across the industry. Not necessarily saying it's a bad thing. I think tax avoidance and all that type of stuff isn't great. Looking over the last few months, there's been a lot of news. Digital IDs we've mentioned a little bit before. Like, do you see? Is it that macro? Are you seeing trends every month, every week that are kind of different to 6 months ago, or is it? Do you think it's more of like an annual thing when something like the budget comes out? Like, how quickly do you tend to adapt to market changes?
Yeah, I mean, obviously budgets change and you've got end of year and April, which we all know that massive companies from MOD to private entity companies, they wait for end of year, So generally speaking, the industry kind of slows down from February to April. People wait for new funding to come in and then the industry booms again.
Yeah.
Different industries, different scenarios, rail, that sort of thing. It's just a constant flow of money.
Yeah.
On the big projects that happen, they're waiting for investors to put money into it, But they have to wait for that moment to put the money in to make sure they've got a return on their investment. That's what it's all about at the end of the day. We're building something for them to earn money in the future. So
I mean, you mentioned something there around kind of cash flow and investment and, getting money into businesses to see them thrive and grow. It kind of segues somewhat nicely onto cash being a bit of a lifeblood to businesses. I think, as you'd probably agree, we work in that space.
Yeah.
Fridays, the busiest day, making sure people are paid, making sure that money's coming in and going out. Have you got any stories to share about good or bad or indifferent payroll?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've had scenarios in the past very early on. We're nowhere near this place now, but cash is the bloodline of any company. Having that money in the bank and I think any business owner would agree that guys get paid first, then suppliers, then yourself. We have been in scenarios in the past where we've had no money. based on the fact that clients haven't paid us or payment terms. There's certain clients out there where you've got 120 days from end of month.
Wow.
And that's huge. And when you've got to fund that from start to finish, and then they're late paying that, which then goes to 180 days, we have been in scenarios where we've had to say to guys, look, carry on working, guys. We are going to pay you a very small amount of your wage, and you'll get paid next week, kind of thing. And touch wood, we've always pulled it out of the bag in the end. But that is one scenario. We've never had it since, to be fair. So,
and I appreciate you sharing that story, and I think it is. We hear it a lot at the moment. I think there's maybe we've mentioned this on the cast before, but I saw an article where governments had to step in around poor payment behaviours from some of the biggest players in construction, and it's meant to have like I think maybe it's going to be a long-term thing, but putting in a restriction of like it has to be within the standard, like an industry standard will never be over X amount of days, maybe 30 days. We see in construction, especially non-agency and in construction, it tends to be that kind of 30-day terms. And has that evolved since your time? Like it used to be weekly?
Yeah,
Like
no,
what was
no. If anything, it's got better. We were working for contractors, and I'm going to name drop now. Carillion,
Yeah.
one that's huge in the industry. We all know that they went pop overnight, and we ended up I think they wrote off about 2.4 billion in one night, which is a scary amount of money. And loads of people got impacted by that, including us. We got hit for quite a sum of money for that one. We've got payment terms of 14 days now. That was unheard of 20 years ago. That's amazing. And I think contractors have started to realise that their subcontractors ultimately are their bloodline of their business. We're all a big engine where the cogs make it turn. Without your subcontractors, you've got nothing. And I think people have realised that they've got to drop their payment terms. But that comes right from the top, right? So clients have got to accept that principal contractors have got to have that money, and so on and so on.
And it is that knock-on effect of chain, isn't it? It's been one of these kind of things that we've seen and we hear of. We've spoken before about one agency closing down kind of a week, if not a day, rather. Over the last 2 years, we're seeing a lot of agencies being shut down, and a lot of the time
even payroll companies we've heard of shutting down, which is unheard of completely. But there's a lot of risk going on with unsecured funding, uninsured personal funding that they're doing. But it's a bad time at the minute.
Yeah. And, that's a bit of a kind of story from the past. We've spoken a bit about your time and, where you've come from and what you're doing now. Like, I've asked this question before. We're doing a lot of reflection today, but look into your crystal ball.
That's what I was about to ask. Yeah, what's your outlook?
So we're quite fortunate. We work in an industry now where you can plan point years in advance, and that's never really been a situation that I'm in.
Yeah.
If you're a pure construction company, you're job to job. You price a job, you get paid it. You move on to the next one. You need to forecast months in advance. We're currently working on projects where we've got a work run till 2032, which is amazing. It's absolutely amazing. So our personal forecast for the next 12 months is to evolve into other industries using our strengths within the company and so on and so on.
What are you looking to get into?
So construction, look, I'm not going to lie, it's always piece of my heart, and we want to get into more architectural, structural steelwork. Right. I'm already in conversations with a few clients. Don't want to get into that too much.
No
name dropping needed.
No. But yeah, so next year the plan is to move into other areas and start growing the business as sectors rather than contracts, if you like. So yeah,
diversifying those revenue streams.
Yeah, and I think, to be fair, QS is like that, because if you can go into a job and say, I can do 4 elements of your build, it makes their life easy, right? So they're sitting there saying, okay, you're quite handy because you're a one-stop shop. So
yeah. And what do you think, at that same light, what are you worried about for the next 12 months? What are the things that are kind of niggling at the back of the mind? As an entrepreneur, managing director, kind of, you're at the forefront in the area.
I think we can all agree with this. Budgets, government, the way the country is heading. You've only got to turn on the news to see that it's It's
Or
very
pressure cooker.
up and absolutely pressure cooker is a great way to describe
Yeah.
it. Yeah, I mean, look, that has an impact. You know, it's anything that you see being built. The big players, the government, they are impacting that, and that's right down to the smallest build because anything can change that. Minimum wage, you know, those sort of things. It just changes the whole dynamics of the industry.
Right. Do you think there's a trend that would define sort of the next year in the construction industry?
Things that you're noticing in the industry as a whole, be that a positive or
AI
negative.
taking over any particular
Yeah.
areas,
Look,
perhaps?
AI is. I
Robot
mean, look, we
bricklayers.
all use it for emails because we sit
Never.
there and type an email and think that looks great, and you put it in ChatGPT and it's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Look, I this is the problem with construction. It's an antiquated industry, but I think it's evolving very quickly. And I think, you know, doing this, a podcast, I mean, 10 years ago, if you'd said I'd sit here as a podcast, I'd be saying, really?
Yep.
But, you know, websites, it's a reference point now.
Yeah.
You know, people want to see it line by line as it happens.
It's an easier way of absorbing information, I think, is
Absolutely,
being able to sit and listen to it while you're driving or on the train.
Absolutely, yeah.
Doing other work, you know.
You would never sit in a car 5 years ago listening to a podcast.
No.
You know, you'd be listening to a radio station or.
So, on that note, we on our most recent white paper, humble brag on our industry white paper focused on construction. You know, trends in the industry. Would you say that you're seeing a gap in terms of that age demographic? Like, just to kind of hone back in on that stat, so 58.3 of our data from our workforce white paper said that the workforce typically sits between 36 to 50, which, again, we said this on our last episode. Back in my day, construction was a bit of a young man's game.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, look. You like me. You left school. You got into construction. I never left school thinking let's be a welder or let's be, you know. But I left school. I evolved into it. But it was easier. You know, now you know, when you look at like CSCS, for example, which is a construction card that you need to get on any decent building site in this day and age. You walked into a test centre, you spent £36, and you told the woman as you walked out what accreditations you want.
Right.
Now, I mean, I've got a gold card. So I have a gold card. I've got 3 accreditations on it. That was £36 when I did it.
Wow.
I did an MVQ, so I can now update that. But that same card is £3,600 now, which is shocking. So you imagine a youngster getting into the industry. That's massive, and employers paying for that. You've got to make sure that that person is committed, and that, you know, if you're investing that level of money, you want to make sure they're staying, not going to leave after 5
and that's
minutes.
it. If
Is
you're
it a lot more in depth, would you say, getting that card now compared to what it was when you got it? Yeah.
I mean, for anyone who drives, you know, it was a theory test.
Right.
A touch screen test, and I mean, when I did it, it was writing, but I'm old. But yeah, it's a touch screen test now, and now you've got to do an MVQ. You know, you've got to have people coming to site, and you know that affects the world that you're working in because you know you're trying to get a job done, and you've got an assessor there, so you've got to do everything by the book,
pressure.
and and that's for youngsters, and coupled with the older generation, you know, they've got rid of grandfather rights now, I believe.
Yes.
If you haven't got an MVQ, you've got to redo that, and that's a guy who's been in the industry for 30 plus years. You know, it's
obviously
scary.
has the practical skills to go out and do
Absolutely.
the job.
Knows it inside out.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
And does that align with like your specific team? Like, are you seeing? Does that reflect like our data of 58% of people being within 36 to 50? Would you like what's that demographic in your workforce?
In the construction, yes. In the cabling world, no, because the cost of training isn't as heavy.
Got it.
So actually, our workforce in cabling is relatively young.
Yeah.
Construction side, it's the older generation.
Yeah.
So.
John, we were talking about the workforce generally just getting older. Why do you think that is? And we spoke about it with other people as well, other industries, mentioned about incentives or things we can do to try and encourage youngsters back into it. But have you got any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, look, I remember being at college and my welding lecturer took me into a room that said, look, this is the IT department, 30 odd people in it. There was 6 in ours. you know, and it's a hard industry, you know, it's hard on your body, it's hard on everything now. Getting them back into it, I think it's just getting people creative again with their hands. And actually, you know, there are people at school that are academic, there are people at school that are good with their hands and want to progress in that industry. Go back to the old way where you're not making it as difficult for the people to get into it.
Yeah.
You know, the initial getting in should be easier, and then the costs of getting in should be later. And that gives, you know, people that run a business confidence in them people. And it also gives the guys that are going out that they actually enjoy the job, because, you know, I love what I do for a living, and I think a lot of people on the ground do.
Yeah. And I guess it's like more accessible. Like it's not as though that we're saying to bypass the things like safety, things like compliance. Obviously, that's the nature of our bag from a financial lens, is like making sure that appropriate risk is mitigated and ensuring that there's not going to be any scary surprises later down the line.
Look, safety, and I personally take this very seriously. As you know, James, I've had incidences in the past where I've been to inquests for people that have had accidents on sites. Not through my own, by the way. That's another story, but we won't get into that. But safety can't be jeopardised. You know, I think it has a place. It's the problem with safety is, I think that a lot of people use it as a revenue. And overkill it a little bit, but the general standard of HSE needs to be maintained. But I think this is the problem when you've got privatised companies doing safety, they profiteer from it, and therefore that makes it very difficult for youngsters to get into the industry. So maybe that needs to be looked at as an overall thing.
So it's like subsidising the access, so that one, if it's the employer that's paying for it, it's done at a lower cost so that they can increase their recruitment volume.
Yep.
But then secondly, from that individual level, because I guess it's an individual that would pay for those types of tickets mainly.
Yeah. I mean, it depends on their status of employment, but yeah, I mean, subcontractors generally cover the costs themselves, or they have an agreement with the person they're working for as a labour-only subcontractor, or if you're employed, obviously you would get paid that money. But industries are different. You know, when you look at the Streetworks Act, you can actually go on site for 16 weeks with a buddy, and you're allowed to do that for 16 weeks without accreditations. CSCS construction, day one.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So in Streetworks, they can have 16 weeks.
Wow.
It's like a try before you buy kind of thing, which is good. I think it's good. You know, as long as you've covered the safety and the risk assessment.
I guess insurance is probably a big element there as well. It might be a different kind of when it comes to covering that sort of stuff.
That's the legislations. You know, it's accepted in the industry, but construction is very rigid, where you have to have that in place before you start, which is difficult for youngsters.
Yeah. They should definitely try and lower that
gauge to entry
level, $3,000 or something, to, you know, as a 18-year-old or 17-year-old.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I mean, you can start with a labourer's card, but
how much is that now? Did you say?
Top of my head, I think it's around about 150.
Oh right, yeah.
But it's still, you know, but then you can't do anything. That's the problem. It's, you know, at least with the Streetworks Act, you can actually get involved in most elements with someone overseeing you.
Sure.
So yeah.
So, like, looking at construction as a whole, as an industry, over the last 12 months, we found that 38,000 vacancies were recorded in 3 months, from Feb 25 up until the end of the year. What's your take on that? Does that shock you? Like, I know there's a lot of work going on. There's got new build, there's grey build, there's all this stuff kind of happening across the country, and more accessible housing, which has obviously been funded by government.
Look, I know companies and business owners that build houses, skill set. That's all I've got to say on that one. You know,
skill shortage.
They are struggling with people. I know a guy locally to me that runs a very big outfit running house building, and he literally said, I could take on another 100 people,
and still
they can't get the skills.
I've heard that from other companies too, saying similar stuff.
Yeah. So it is that, you know, and I think that's it. What, you know, we're talking about youngsters coming through. This has been an issue for 20 years. And now it's starting to bite us, you know, Well, it's a bit like with the drive-in, like we were looking at, there was some stats on what Bristol we were looking at, weren't we? The government,
that's national. Under 2% of drivers are under the age of 25, and there's definitely reflection across other industries where there's a huge gap. Where's the majority of your business come from in your time as a as a director? Like, are you doing outbound? You know, are you have you got a sales function? Or are you going out there and doing word of mouth kind of BD? Where does
Look, I'm not going to cut it. We try and keep it as local as we can. Done loads of work in London in the past. If I'm honest, I try and avoid it purely because of cost of congestion charge, you know, all the other stuff that comes with it, parking, jobs go through the roof. So I try and keep it within our sort of area. So it's...
And is that based off like your local network, I guess?
Yeah, word of mouth.
And what would you say the age demographic of those deals getting done is? Would you have not to call anyone's age out here, but what I'm trying to get to is there a end in sight for kind of that more organic local business growth? Because ultimately, and I'm not saying you're in this category, people are aging out of the industry. There's obviously not enough people coming into the industry.
No, yeah,
Where
I
do
mean,
you see that dynamic?
Yes and no. I mean, we work for companies where I directly know the directors of that company. Therefore, I have an in, if you like. But there are people coming through that company that, you know, one of our clients, for example, is probably looking at retiring in the next couple of years. Of course, it's been a thought in my brain that that's going to be an issue, but there are people coming through that rank that you kind of have a relationship with. You build that relationship. But I think, you know, doing a podcast for construction, I mean, who thought that would be a thing in the last 10 years? It's,
Yeah.
you know.
Well, that's it. I think people digest information differently these days, and I say it a lot. I think multiple streams of reach of individuals.
You know, anytime you look on any social, even LinkedIn, the adverts you get are generally somebody talking at you into a camera or podcast.
Yeah.
So it's the future, I think.
So looking forward for the kind of final point.
There's a legislation that's coming out in our space, joint and several liability. We spoke about it a little bit, James, and
does impact end hirers and end clients as well. But
it will do. With it coming out, this thing coming out in April, have you had any recent conversations or more scrutiny on your end clients or your clients asking you about your supply chains and payroll and that kind of
I mean, look, I suppose with the bigger contractors, you've got onboarding. So when you're on board, there's a million questions with policies, and you're trying to, you know, onboarding in the old days was an email, can I start Monday? Yes, please. Now you spend probably, you know, some of them are months. You know, you could be gathering that paperwork and sending it into them, and that is part of what you're talking about. So I've just onboarded with a big company, and yes, that was raised. So
not surprised, to be fair.
Yeah, I think that especially the bigger players have got more to lose, right? And that's not to take away from the fact that, let's be real, you know, it's a lot easier to investigate a small to medium size than it is a big company. And over the last 12, there's been a lot of big companies that have kind of come crop of some of the stuff in the space, and more scrutiny seems the next 12 months at least. There's a lot of pressure coming through the industry at the moment, and that's causing more scrutiny at the point of entry, which you're obviously seeing as well.
They want to be able to audit every bit of everyone's payroll, supply chain, but all the ins and outs of everyone's business to make sure that the whole supply chain is protected.
I mean, it's not a bad thing, you know. There's a lot of, or used to be more, I guess. I think it's less and less now, but rogue companies, if not. You know, you've got to be professional. You've got to have, you know, independent safety or internal safety people or companies. I think that policies are a big thing. You know, it's government led, obviously. It's industry standard, HSE, and that's more and more. Which is it a bad thing? No, probably not. You know, it keeps everyone in line and it makes it fair. You know, because when you're going against someone who's two-man in the van, which is fine, you know, there's no issue with that. We've all got to start somewhere. You know, when they're rucking around and their overheads are X because they don't have to worry about all this stuff. You've got the bigger companies that can't really price them jobs up because their central overheads are so high. So,
It all rolls down, doesn't it? And as you say, everyone's starting somewhere.
What do you think the biggest compliance challenge will be over the next sort of year for people in your space?
Great question, Az.
Obviously, they are bringing out digital ID. Doesn't really affect us. I think, you know, we induct everyone who starts with us. Some of the clients we've got to produce national insurance numbers, so they're pretty up to that anyway. From rail to grid to water. I mean, water's going to be probably the next big thing because you've got the infrastructure's 1960s. We're getting problems all over the place. So the government need to step in with that, right? Because the land's getting polluted, and that's the
100%,
thing.
The rivers and
Yeah. I personally, if I'm going to throw out on the podcast, I think that's probably the next big thing. I think the water industry is going to be the next growth, if you like. We've had the construction, telecoms, rail, HS2. That was a big one that got dropped.
I hate how it has to become a major problem before it.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean,
they have to pollute the hell out of the rivers to where it's reported on.
Yeah. I mean, look, I on a personal note, I go fishing, I see it all the time. It's the rivers are in a shocking state. It's terrible. Obviously, budgets that will impact that. So I think that industry will change, but like if you look at HS2 as an example, overnight shut.
Yeah.
Who can predict that? And people had invested millions.
Someone will say that they did, by predicting it, but it's one of those other. It just becomes another. It's like, again, buzzword bingo, but Brexit, COVID, HS2, all of that stuff, digital ID. It's all those same things that just like, oh, look at this. This is all going on, and
I mean, look, as a business, I think you've got to.
You do good to keep your ear to the
You've got to be diverse, I mean, the days of having a business that specialises in one thing, I think that's a thing of the past now. I think people have got to really start thinking outside the box. I mean, we started as a structural steel, architectural steel. We've done concrete, national grid, water, rail, telecoms. I think the only thing we haven't done is airside, which my insurance company are quite glad about, because we tick every box apart from airside. So,
but it's good. Like you said earlier, you wanted to, you had people appreciate the fact that you're a bit of a one-stop shop.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, enough of the questions from the industry lens. It's good to kind of finish off and maybe spill the tea a little bit on John outside of Flownet. Well, before we do that, is there anywhere
it's a dark place?
Is there anywhere that you want, or any way that you want to kind of plug as a finishing point of where people could learn a little bit more about what you're doing, what you're planning to do? LinkedIn, socials, all that kind of malarkey.
Yeah. So Flownet. Look, our biggest industry at the moment is telecoms. We are getting back into what I know is a place in my heart is architectural steelwork. I'm currently talking to 3 or 4 suppliers. One thing that has evolved, as I said earlier, you've got to try and change in our industry is gully sucking and desilting. That's something we are pushing more and more, and that's an industry where it isn't
big growth.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not an industry where it isn't word of mouth. That's definitely got to advertise it and get it out there. So anyone wants to use Flownet for gully sucking and desilting, here we are. We're set up, ready to go.
Aaron, have you got your hard-hitting questions?
What's your favourite colour?
Blue.
That is, I think, the most natural reaction that we've had on the favourite colour.
I appreciate that. What do you like to do when you're not Flownetting? Got any hobbies? I know you mentioned fishing.
I fish.
You're into your tunes.
Mad fisherman. I love music. House is always full of music, which is lovely. Kids love it. Rugby, big rugby fan. My son plays rugby. I used to. Too old now. So I love my rugby.
Good man.
Family time. That's
It's
all good.
No.
Quite simple, to be fair.
Same as me, mate.
Look, I'm happy if you're happy. Thanks so much for joining us today. It's been a really nice chat.
No worries. I've enjoyed it. It's been good.
Appreciate you spending some time with us.
It's a very different Friday for me. So, yeah.
Hey, it's a Friday Payroll Club.
Yeah, I've enjoyed it. Yeah, no, it's good.
Yeah, we'll see you on next month's episode.
Friday. Look forward to the next one. Thanks a lot.
No worries. Thank
Cheers,
you.
John.
Thank you for having me.